Today, we have two distinguished guests from PASHA Holding, our HR leaders at Boon and Aytan Abbasli. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So my first question would be about the origin story. Could you start by sharing where you grew up and how your upbringing influenced your career choices?
Yeah, so I'm from the Netherlands. Quite simple upbringing, happy childhood, son of entrepreneurs, which I think makes me still a bit creative in a way. Cautious but creative. I loved sports when I was younger, which I think still influences me today, because I think movement as a business professional as well is extremely important, right? To stay fit. This is top sport. We sometimes neglect our bodies a bit, but sports teaches you to cherish the tool you have, right? Normal schooling, normal start of my career, etc. I chose my career based upon my childhood, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think what I loved doing is reading biographies. Don't know why that started that way, but I loved reading biographies. And I started reading biographies of business leaders. Mm-hmm. And I found them super interesting. I remember as a child there was a series of little blue books, I still don't know what they were called, mm-hmm. but they were about business leaders. Lee Iacocca from Chrysler, the story about GE, Jack Welch, the cola war between Coca-Cola and Pepsi with Roger mm-hmm. Enrico. It was just super fascinating. And I thought, when I was going into my studies, I thought that must be something that I need to explore further. So I did the combination between business administration and human resources, which was the closest thing that I could think of to make sure I could be in business, because I always like to understand how a business makes money, particularly influenced by my origin from that sense. But also then in combination with sort of that huge curiosity about people, which I still have today. Like, if I would talk to you, I would be very curious about your origin story and yours. Like, we had that discussion.
Yes.
It just influences me, my day-to-day work. So I love what I do.
Nice, thank you.
Sure.
Aytan, what about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for such an opportunity. This is, I think, a very good idea, and I wish good luck to PASHA Hub with this Hubcast series. I very hope that our employees will get something interesting and valuable for themselves from these casts.
Well said.
About me, so I was born and grew up in Baku, Azerbaijan. Very much in love with this city, with our sea. Everyone, I think my close friends and my team knows how I like Baku. And when I have this Bahili Balasayam song, I am on a dance floor at that moment. So Nigar should confirm that. I was lucky with also be surrounded with my big family. So I have 3 uncle and aunts from one side and 3 from another side. I was the first child in this family. And I think what impacted my career, maybe not career, but more my education and my interests and the values, it is my family, because one, I would divide my family into 2 spheres. One part of my family is a more artistry, so they are more in music, art, and another family is a more in interpretation, jurisprudency. So I kind of combined all that. So from childhood, I learned 7 years playing piano. I love drawing and pictures, and I think that's really fulfilled me with energy. And the second part is I admired my aunt, who was an interpreter. And who was traveling lots of countries at that time. It was 80s, I think. And she was very independent, very, very interesting live living, and I was dreaming to be as her really. And I think my choice, like to go to translator interpretation degree, was coming from her. I would say like this.
Thank you very much, Aytan Hanım. So you mentioned your educational background as well, briefly, but we will talk about it more deep. So Ed, what about your educational path, and how did your early career decisions lead you towards human resources?
Yeah, so I took the long road towards education. So I've never been a fast student in terms of education. So I loved sports. I think I spent a bit more time there than I did in the classroom. And I struggled with the whole education system, perhaps. So maybe I didn't like being very rigid in the classroom and focus on these tests and things. I've been more a combination between theory and practice, I think. Right? So in the Netherlands we have a peculiar system. You can go through it in different levels. I started at the lowest level, and I think I'm part of the 0.3% who start at that level and do finally end up with a university degree. But I ultimately, I think through perseverance, I did reach my university degree. But the last part of the university I did while working, right? So in the evening.
Okay.
So like most of us, we need money to survive, and I, very fortunate about my background, but it didn't allow me to. I needed to take care of my own money, and I started working before I finished university full time, and I finished it while working in the evenings. So studying in the evening. So it's a long road, but I think there's a big lesson for me there too, because I know if I persevere, if I just keep working at something, that ultimately I will achieve it. So it's been humbling. I think it brought me a good work ethic. So I know I like work. I think I need to balance it a bit with work and life in that sense, and I've sometimes gone towards the work path a bit too much, and I've realized that, and thank God I have a beautiful and wonderful wife who keeps me very honest and rings the bell every once in a while saying the balance is shifting. But I think from that educational path I just learned that I like being busy, I like studying, but I also like working. So I think it has influenced me quite a big deal.
Combining both.
Yeah, and ultimately, when I've been on the final part, when I started the whole PhD part, I also realized that theory is great. I'm not a scientist. I do need to combine it with putting it into practice.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah,
Yes,
I think
absolutely,
that's
I
just.
agree.
So I like the whole education thing. I would encourage people to really to study and to make wise choices. But don't forget, there's an application of what you know, and like you're doing these podcasts, these wonderful events. It's about sharing and learning, sharing your learning with other people. And I think if you start working, you can also share what you've learned, mixed with your own flavor to it, into the workforce. And ultimately, that's where it should land, I think.
Thank you. Just a quick question: if you could take back time, would you still choose the same educational path, or maybe pick up something different?
It's a very good question. I think I talk with quite pleasure about my educational path. It was hard. So what I now tell my kids, I sometimes say life isn't fair. Sometimes you have to work really, really hard, and but it takes a lot of energy. So in hindsight, I think I discovered a bit later that I was a better student than I thought I was, which influenced me. So I thought I need to just take incremental steps in my education because I'm not that smart. Later I found out there's nothing wrong with me, I'm okay. And
so
I think
there were some internal labels for yourself?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think mean, I didn't say like I'm stupid, but I think I did say that to myself that some of my friends were just smarter.
Okay.
Right?
So it's going to be harder for you
Right.
to do the same.
And yeah, it's going to be, yes, exactly like that. And in hindsight, if I now look back knowing what I know now, I would have gone to the higher education earlier.
Okay.
I also tell my kids to do the same, and or at least advise them, because obviously, like all parents, they don't listen. But I do advise them to, like I would have advised myself, to go a bit of higher steps and then just see where that ends up. Right? You can always take that. You can always take a step back. It's harder to take a step up.
100%.
Thank you.
Agree?
Agree.
Yeah.
Aytan, I can believe that back in the days when we were getting higher education and we were getting our bachelor degree, it was so influenced by the parents.
Absolutely.
So what you could choose in this part of the world, it was much more dictated by the family.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us
Yeah.
about your educational choices and how
Yeah.
it evolved through the
Yeah,
career.
as I mentioned prior, I've been influenced by a member of my family, but I really admired what she'd been doing, and I really wanted to be part of that. Kind of looking the world, see the world, different cultures, help people by means of interpretation to understand each other. So probably the love to HR function, HR science was from childhood. But if I would choose now, I have a different part of myself, which is more about art, and I always coming back, even now, I am coming back to that, and maybe I would choose to be an art designer, something like that, go deep in art, because it's really, as I said, fulfilling me with higher energy. But I choose that part to be part of my hobbies rather the main, and I think I had this discussion with my family in the past as well, so I had two kind of choices, and I've been told no, better to know languages, and it's more you will have an opportunities itself, etc. So that's why the choice was there. But yes, I would rather think of doing something art. There is a similarities with, so really echoing me in terms of practical part of that. I always want some practical tools and ideas to imply in my life. So that's why I also started working earlier. So it was my first third year summertime I started. So, and I found it very interesting and very challenging and interesting, but also it was very motivational to do the things, to get an impact from what you are doing, and to earn the money myself. So it was a kind of here. Despite of my academic education, I still understand, I still also took a lots of qualification during the year, because I understand that really enhancing the knowledge and getting education is very important. And I did get a lots of, as I said, several qualifications from different universities like Wharton, London Business School, and INSEAD, so which kind of equipped me with technical frameworks which I could imply at work.
Yeah, fantastic. I think this is what we are promoting, the lifelong learning education in organizations, so thank you for mentioning that as well.
Good. Yeah, we must.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first job. Your first job.
Yeah.
Failures, successes, lessons learned, how it influenced your career, and what you do today.
Yeah, my first job, shall I start, Aytan?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So my first job was actually while I was studying. So educational system in the Netherlands worked in such a way that you work for, you have a study of 4 years, higher education, and in my part, in the third year, you work full time at a company, which is great. I mean, you get to apply everything you know, and you learn from mentors or
Mhm.
coaches around you, right? And while doing work. So I felt very lucky. I joined this environmental firm, and the chief HR officer of that company, it's a small company, but it was impactful at the time, was Maureen van Engelen. And I learned so much from her. Like I think my style today is still very much influenced by how I saw her interact with her management team, her team, HR team, but also how she interacted within the organization.
Mhm.
Words she would say, sentences she would use, humor that she would use. Or, it's just I learned a lot. I still recognize myself a lot in her. And then, of course, fourth year you go back to studies. But what that company asked is, they said, why don't you work for 3 days a week for us
Mhm.
during studies? And I said, well, that's not possible because I have to be in school. They said, well, talk to school. I talked to the school and they said, why not? Labor market's tight. You can get a job. They offer you a job. That's pretty amazing. Go do it. Just make sure you do all your end 4-year studies at the company with all the assignments and things like that. And we did. So it worked.
Yeah.
So I never had to apply for a job, and I started at that company and I stayed there until Maureen left to another company. She took me with her to another
Okay,
company.
so-
So it was quite a warm bed, as they say. I think failures. I don't think I remember a lot of failures from. Rest assured, there's many failures along the path towards here. But I think it was just a joy there.
Mm.
So I didn't. I think it's more an upward path there, because what happened when she took me to the new company, which was ABB,
Mhm.
I started to do HR for a factory, right? So I was back in the dungeons doing salary stuff and just incremental, in the end, pivotal, important, but just all over the place HR for a manufacturing environment, which I think if you are in my field and in our field, that's important because it's so basic and you understand HR so well after that. I went through quite quick steps after that, and I will never forget that after 3 years I was asked to become the HR director for the Benelux for that organization. Which
How
is
old were you?
I started working 24, so I must have been 27 at the time.
Mhm.
And then I
Quite early.
became the manager of
Mhm.
those people who were the managers of the managers who were managing me at the time within
Mhm.
3 years. Obviously, what you normally would expect is that these people would rebel against you to
Mhm.
say, like, this kid is, that's not normal. I will never ever forget that the whole team never anywhere gave me the feeling that they were thinking that way,
Mhm.
and they supported me.
Nice.
So I think sometimes I often, at least for 99%, I have the ability to not judge people
Mhm.
by their hierarchy or about their standing or whatever else on their business card, because it's about how they make me feel and what they say. I think I learned from that moment. I will never ever forget that team stood by me, although they had every single reason to think like this is this kid from,
Mhm.
that was just with us 3 years ago
Mhm.
in the dungeons. And that's important. It's an important life lesson for me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Aytan Hanım, what about your early career starts in profession?
Yeah, so I started early. So I've been, as I said, I finished third year on my university, and on the summer I took summer job for 3 months. So I've been 19 years old at that time, and so I've been taking the job with first cable TV in Baku.
Okay.
And I've taken the role of sales agent who required the English language knowledge and computer at that time, so it was a rare kind
Skill
of
set.
skills, yeah. And I really enjoyed the job because it made me to know myself better in terms of ability to communicate with people well, and I had lots of foreign customers
Mhm.
with whom I should interact via the phone.
Mhm.
convince them to purchase and connect to this cable TV, and I liked it very much. And I think I was very successful on my first sales, so I had received some bonus on that, and I was so happy.
What did you do with the first bonus?
So I shared it. I did
With
it 50%.
Wow.
I gave to my mom,
Okay.
and 50% I kept for myself. She said to buy for yourself some presents.
Wow.
So I bought some presents for myself. So the flavor of being and working and making some impact and money
Yeah.
gave me a nice feeling, actually. So I think from that time I decided to start working. And from the fourth course I shifted to the to either to night shift, and I went work full time. I took a job in largest Big Four organization, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, but very junior role. So I started from receptionist. So it wasn't what I admire to do, but it really helped me to understand the organization very much from the very scratch and beginning. And it was very multitasking job where I can show my multitasking. I did a partially administrative job, so it was a mixture of both. I worked there for 6 months, and I've been noticed by the manager. I remember her very much. She was from USA, Gretchen Reeves, and I remember her very well because she also impacted me as a role model at that time and mentored me a lot. And she proposed me the HR specialist role. And in the organization we lived some changes, and there wasn't any manager because of some structural changes. And I was the only one in HR field. It was a real challenge for me, and it was a pivotal turnaround because I hadn't a great experience in that sphere. And I was kind of left alone with this doing and bringing up the function. It was difficult. There was some failures. There was a mistake. There were mistakes during the job I was doing, but I had her help. She was operational manager and deputy of CEO at that time, and I had a really good peers and colleagues around who supported me. Most of them I know now, so they grew up with me at that time. Now we are taking the biggest roles in different organizations of Azerbaijan, and it was a kind of, I say that PwC for me was a real academy. So I learned a lot there. I met lots of good people. So from the receptionist during the 5-6 years, I think I grew up to the HR manager role. So I was leading the function for Azerbaijan branch. And I think I was then hiring teams and etc. and see the impact of changing the people's lives. So I think I met you there as well. Yeah. And I really appreciate that experience.
Yeah, I still remember the interview with Aytan Hanım in PwC.
I have no doubt.
Yeah, I still remember the questions actually.
Really?
Yes. So it was a nice experience as well. Should we take a break?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about mentorship experience. What role has mentorship played in your career, both as a mentor and as a mentee?
I found that question very, very hard because I realized I don't really have like this one person that I consider a mentor.
One figure.
Yeah, like one figure, although I spoke about the earlier experience I have with Maureen. I think I've worked with some leaders who I served or worked with, partnered with, who I think I consider a mentor, but I've learned something different from each of them. So I work with a Dutch CEO called Hein, very rigid, very structured, very disciplined, but a huge moral compass. So he would make me work and be strict and be diligent and be all over the place, and this was a turnaround situation. But he would always have me look at my moral compass, like, is this are we treating people right? Right. So I learned that from him. I worked with a German chief procurement officer at the time, because I was doing a procurement transformation for Royal Philips at the time. Very creative, very fast, very quick, very super big thinker. I've learned from him to be fast, to be agile, to be flexible. But he also had that moral compass, right? So I think I actually learned quite a lot from the people who I worked with and who worked for me, or as their manager. So I think mentors are is everybody around you. I've learned a lot from my wife. I've learned a lot, maybe even the most, from my kids. So I think mentorship is maybe 1% in everybody around you who forms you over time. And I don't have I've never had a formal mentorship relationship. And your question, as part of the preparation, made me think about that. And maybe I'd like to discuss it with you as well, and with you.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Aytan Hanım, what about you?
Yeah, I fully agree with Art, because mentorship is really kind of inserted into your life and career path, but not all people are lucky to have such a people around.
Fair.
I think.
Fair.
Because sometimes people who having potential, or people who having challenges, they don't meet right people and the right time with you nearby where you can consult. I think I was also lucky to have such a kind of people. As I said, I mentioned first it was a Gretchen at my first steps, baby steps taking toward to professional career, understanding the corporate culture, understanding the dynamics, learning myself to be more self-aware of my strengths and weaknesses. So I think she helped me a lot. And I had another change of leader, and I can also mention him. He was also he was a Pakistani guy, very tough and very detailed. But we had lots of conversation with him on personal development and professional growth. Where he gave me lots of advices. So he kind of managed to take off his boss hat and wearing a mentor hat, and it was very nice conversation we had with him. And he was the one who saw and support me to my managerial role, and I really appreciate that he seen with me the potential and kind of pushed me back further. And when the times passed, I think I was feeling, and I was gathering all these qualities from my mentors and my leaders with whom I worked. I think I felt kind of not obliged, it's not the right word, but I felt that I also need to be the mentor for someone else.
Give back.
Give back, yes. There is a moment, I hope I can be helpful to the people I worked with as a mentor as well. And I learned from these people as well, and I currently do some mentorship sessions with people. And I think it's very important and I always think that when I see the potential in people, when I see that the person needs help or direction, I try to be there. And this is kind of natural coming from me, so kind of empathy part. But I really used it a lot during my career, during my life, because Ad mentioned kids. The similar kind of approach I use with my kid, but I also learned it from them a lot, really a lot. I sometimes tell to my eldest daughters, "You are so smart. I'm proud of you," because she says sometimes things which hints you, and then you say, "Wow." And I really appreciate that I have such people around me.
Yeah, That's interesting, actually. When you become a mentor yourself at some point of career, when you get to a leadership role, do you still need to have a formal mentor when you are still mentoring people around you?
I think you
Should
need.
there be a figure that?
I think so. It's a good question. I think you always need to be curious. I think you always need to be open for advice. I think you need to, because some of the decisions we take, I realize, impact people quite a lot, sometimes for the rest of their lives. And I'm very knowledgeable about that. So I tend to take my job very professionally, very serious. I'd like to explain it like, I'd like to be lighthearted and easy to work with, but I do take it very, very serious. That requires also for me to be curious about what is the whole context of the decision that I'm about to take, either about a person or about a situation we're in. And I sometimes just don't know 360 all the views. So for me, mentors are also people who are knowledgeable about situations and who I should tap into their knowledge and their mind and into their hearts to make sure that I or my team take the right decisions for situations or for people. So I think mentorship is all around us. And indeed, to your point, I mean, I don't think you need a formal mentor, but they're handy sometimes if they're available. And but if you don't have a formal mentorship, you are a mentor to me and you are a mentor to me because you know you have things that you know that I don't.
How do you make sure that you pick up a right mentor for yourself? What are the signs that the person can really help you, elevate you, and support you?
Well, I think to be able to help other people, you first need to help yourself. To understand other people, you need to understand yourself first.
Exactly.
So it's like the oxygen mask coming out of the plane, right? That's a metaphor for life somehow. So I think you need to be able to be honest to yourself and ask yourself the question, what should I know and which I don't? And I tend to ask myself that quite a lot. Even though I have this experience and we all have this experience, I tend to be humble in and the understanding of what I know and what I don't know. So I think you don't need a mentor, but you need to be humble and vulnerable enough to make sure that you understand that we all do need mentors because we sometimes know what we know and what we don't. So I tend to reach out quite a lot to people and ask them for some advice. I might not always show it. I might not always talk about it, but there's quite a few people I tap into with just a quick, like, how would you do this and how would you do that? So I tend to look for more mentors than I sometimes make people realize.
So potentially anybody can become.
I think so.
a
I mean,
mentor
there's.
in a
I
career.
mean, to your point, sometimes it's a conversation with our family members.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Definitely.
with our spouses. Sometimes a solution to a problem is not something we don't know. It's just something that we're not prepared to show in that conversation. Sometimes it's not the message, but it's the messenger.
Yes.
And then sometimes that conversation with your spouse can be very healing because they make you realize that you're not showing a part of yourself, which would be very helpful to show. In our line of work, which it's often very personal, that's important.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about inspirational sources. You talked previously that you are a very artsy and creative person. Where do you typically find inspiration or new ideas that influence your leadership approach?
So I get new ideas from diversified inspirational sources. So it's usually I do read some materials, some books, looking to some podcasts, listening some podcasts, maybe some videos and etc., which is like TED Talks, etc., where what are interests me in the sphere which is interests me. So I get some ideas from there, but mainly I do get ideas from interacting with the team. So my industry peers, because while sharing the ideas, while discussion, I don't know how brain is very interesting engine. Is like when you discuss, when you talk about some topics, it brings sometimes ideas, and the puzzles kind of puts together. So this is the main sources. When I would like to relax, and I also take a long walk in the evenings with my dog. So while walking, I also kind of, in a silence, I do think and reassess my day or the project, or I don't know, the situation where I can come up with an idea. And in the morning I was like, I can do like this.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
What about you, Ed?
I read books. I love reading books. I still read those biographies. So I've finished the 800 pages of Elon Musk. I just read, which is a wonderful book called Shoe Dog from Phil Knight, about the story of Nike. And you know, I often quote the poet Rumi, which says like, what you seek is seeking you. So if you're looking for something, don't look for it, it will find you. And I think the red thread of reading books, particularly business books, which I like to do, is that there's always something in those books which I need at that point in time. I just don't realize it when I start reading the book. It's an important inspiration for me, and I must read I always read a book. Second is that I'm fully aware that our field of work, so we're in human resources, is always evolving. We're now working with multi-generation workforces. We have the future of work. What motivates people changes. AI and digital is quite a big factor for us. So I don't want to be one of those people who reasons from the experience from 20 years ago. And this is the way I've done it, so I guess that's how we do it today. I really feel we need to evolve, so I have a subscription to the Harvard Business Review, which is quite insightful for me. I like hearing about other companies, and I do scan their webpage. I do try to be on LinkedIn. I don't post as much as I want to, actually. I think I should do more of it. But I read quite a lot of it. It's the only social media that I use. If you look at my phone, I must have the most
You don't have a TikTok? Or
I must have the most. I must be the proud owner of the most boring phone in history. Because I just have one, or I think I have 7 apps on it in total, which includes the phone and the WhatsApp and the contacts and all the boring stuff. So I must have the most boring phone. But LinkedIn is on there, and it helps me a lot to read a lot. But I also believe that there's not a single person in the world I cannot talk to. So if I find an interesting story, no matter how celebrity this person is, I will send a message to this person, and I often, maybe 99% of the time, they will respond. And everybody always has time for a conversation. So like in line with the mentorship, I do feel if somebody has an interesting story, I do tend to reach out, and I do tend to end up having a conversation, which led to the most wonderful, sometimes friendships, but at least the wonderful insights. So I do want to make sure, and I think this is a message at least to the people that I work with, make sure you keep up to date with the latest development in your field, because we all of us, we serve people. We are responsible for creating the right context for them to thrive, and they change. So our minds and what we know should also change.
Thank you. So apart from being HR leaders, you are also parents. 3 of us share 11 kids. I was just counting, and majority is yours. So how do you manage and how do you balance the life at work and life beyond the work.
Yeah.
Having in mind that the boundaries are now not that clear, you are constantly on the phone, you're approachable 24/7.
Yeah.
How do you manage being a good parent and a tremendous leader?
Yeah. So there's one thing I know of myself is that I try to be a good parent. I try to be a good husband. I'm not saying that I am, but I do try. So that's one thing I know of myself. I think if I've made mistakes, like the bigger mistakes in my life, they have been on the family front. So I think I've been, like I said, I like work, and I have been in a situation where it just wasn't working out for the family.
Okay.
And I've been fortunate to have a wife who then rings the alarm bell in time to say, look, this is not right. It's not going in the right way. We need to talk. She does it a bit more than I want to, but it is also very honest. So I know, and we've been in a situation where it was close to breaking, but we've always had this conversation, and I've also been in this courageous enough to then say, okay, work needs to stop. Sometimes you need to take a time out. Sometimes you need that as a person. Sometimes you also need it for the whole situation you're in. So I did that. I learned a lot from it. I think that's where I learned you can only help other people if you first help yourself. You can only help understand other people if you first understand yourself. And now I know that I need to be honest and vulnerable to those who I love the most in life. I need to express how I feel about them. Say words, I love you and I miss you. So I've become over time quite open to my kids and to my wife about what I feel and what I do. And I realized that actually is helping me in work. Because it allows me to work. So if I've realized the balance for me is not about the time spent, obviously that's a factor, but it's much more about the more honest and vulnerable I live my life with my family, the most honest and vulnerable I can be at work, and the most quality time, like real quality time I spend on the family side, the more I can actually have some time back on the work side. So right now, as you know, I live in Azerbaijan and I love it, like your story about Baku and the city and the sea and the people. Never mind the food. It's like there's nothing not to like here. And this is an amazing story. I lived in the US, I lived in Singapore, I lived in Qatar, I lived in the Netherlands, and now here. So it's not my first rodeo. But so far it turns out to be one of my favorites so far. And that's not just me being nice here, and because we're on camera. I really mean that. But I can only do that because I have that support from home, because they know why I'm here. They know I feel meaningful, and that's what I'm looking for right now in my life. Being in a meaningful position is everything that I go for. And because they understand me, they know I will talk to them every single day, and as you said, the number is quite high, so I will talk to them every single day. My wife will be knowledgeable, or she knows I'm here today and what I do. I will talk about my fears and my doubts and what I struggle with here, and that allows me to work and to be here. Otherwise I would not be here.
Definitely.
So that's my few cents.
Aytan Hanım, for a female, I would imagine that's twice harder to balance work and life. But what is your secret?
I think, so during my career, I had my three babies, and I had some breaks, to maternity breaks for growing them up, so it was a maximum 4 or 5 months, unfortunately. But I had a family who, my mom especially, who supported me a lot with growing them up, because I was very comfortable that she is with them at least the first 2 years of their lives. I have 3 beautiful daughters, and I'm really proud of them. And I always try to plan my day and my weeks in such a way so I have a time to spend with them, because it is very essential. Unfortunately, not always I can be in a. So time is very. Not always I have spent such time I want to spend with them. Especially when it's a difficult and busy periods at work. But we have an agreement as well with my husband. He's a very good friend of mine, I would say, first of all, who supports me a lot, and who also kind of take care the part I miss sometime, and it is very essential. So I have like from one side is my mom, from another side is my husband, and we do have very quality time several times during the year for vacation, which I try to plan and try to have very nice time, fun time with them, so they feel that my attention is dedicated to them. I also, like after the work, I come at work, I always check how they are, and we do have discussions. Sometimes it's longer discussion with one of my kids, like we can chat with eldest or middle one like till the midnight, and she talks about secrets and etc. But what rule we have in our family that parents are the friends. So we are not like mother, father, and children. We are more like a big and nice team of, like a team who is enjoying being together. And I agree with that. Really, family energizes a lot. And if there is any trouble, if there is any kind of problems there, you cannot, you can concentrate, you can take like all your power and continue, but sometimes your mind is still there. So there should be, everything is okay. You should feel supported as well in order to have a quality time at work to continue your career. But why I haven't stopped my career? Because I also always wanted to be a role model for my daughters, because it is not a secret. We are living in Azerbaijan. Somehow it's a Muslim country as well. And I wanted them to know that a woman can build a career, woman can be independent, a woman need to concentrate on its education, but also at home to be a good mother. So I like cooking, and I really enjoy cooking with my kids and with my husband. I like having the guests at my house. So I do kind of, somehow I managed to divide my Aytan being a mother and woman at home, Aytan being different at work, a bit different at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Beautiful story.
Thank you.
Beautiful story.
Thank you.
I learned a lot from that, actually.
So my last question would be, what advice would you offer to someone aspiring to take on a leadership role for the first time? One piece of advice.
It's a very good question. I think, so I don't want to, well, first of all, first piece of advice is enjoy it. Mm-hmm. We often forget it. I think I mentioned it before. We often get so stressed out about, I need to do this, I need to do that, I should do this, should do that. Leave it. Okay. Enjoy it. Another piece of advice is, we already have enough examples, there's already enough structure, there's already enough process, there's already enough protocol. There's already enough predecessors, but do it your way. Do it the way you feel you need to do it. And that's a very big ask, because we always have these filters around us that we should do things in a certain way because we're trained in a certain way. We're trained to think in a certain way. So I feel the more you're open for feedback, the more you're curious, and the more you're asking questions and ask for help, I think that's the best way to get started. So sometimes I feel our measure of success is aligned with our measure of our ability to ask for help. So maybe those are the two things. Enjoy and ask for help.
Thank you. Aytan Hanım, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that, but what I would advise is what I do practice as well, and what is a part of my leadership is, first is to be authentic, because people, team, people around us, they feel us very well. And if you are trying to be someone else, so people feel that. So basically being authentic, being open,
Being yourself.
Being yourself, and that will kind of work as a magnet for people, because and not be afraid of being vulnerable as well, because I do sometimes share my worries with my team, but maybe in a books you will read that you need to be always strong, you need to not share your stress and etc. But I do share that sometimes I do mistakes, and sometimes I am in a stress. Yes, I am a normal and human being. So be yourself as a human being, as a live person, as well as treat people like that. So be more, use more empathy, and be more empathetic to the people, and feel people. I think it's also important for leader.
Thank you very much.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Because I've been thinking about what we because I think I fully agree with you, right? I've been trying to position myself into my 20-year-old self, starting or 24-year-old self, starting my first job. And there's so much we should do, we should know, and we share all these knowledge and be authentic and ask for help. It is really, really hard if you're that young. It's really, really hard. So, and there's not a lot of things that you can control, because you often have a manager, and that manager has a manager, and you have this organization, and you have this job description, and these requirements, and these KPIs. But what you can control is where you will have your first job often. Sometimes we're not that luxury, we're just lucky that we have a job. But for some of us, we are in a position to still say, shall I take this job or not? And the only advice I can give you from my past is that don't select an organization. Look at its purpose. That's a price of admission.
100% agree.
But look at the guy or girl you will work for.
Absolutely. It should match. The values should match with your own values. Yeah. And that's definitely why I'm working in PASHA Holding actually for 40 years, because it's matched with my own personal values. Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes we've used to say, like, people join an organization and leave because of a manager, and I understand that. I think we should also join because of a manager sometimes. So that still needs to be within that ecosystem, and I agree PASHA is a wonderful ecosystem to be part of. I'm quite proud to be part of the family. But my 24-year-old self was lucky with that first lady I worked for. And if I have one piece of advice, be extremely alert in the interview you have with the person that you're going to work for. Because that person most likely will be, if all things work out well, a big impact on the rest of your career. So it's an important start. Be mindful, be open, be very courageous about the decision you're going to take, whether or not you want to work with that person. So the company's interviewing you, you're interviewing the person you're going to work for.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for this interesting
Sure.
interview.
Love-
I
Thank
hope
the
you
opportunity.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Last
very
but not least, we have a couple of blitz questions. Short question, short answer.
Okay.
2 words max.
Oh,
much. Okay.
Okay.
We like talk a lot.
Yeah.
exactly.
So, 1 word that describes your leadership style. Ladies first.
Trust.
I think it's open.
Okay. Favorite hobby outside of work?
Art. Drawing.
Work.
Work again. What's one country you would love to visit?
I would say that's Ecuador.
Japan.
Nice. One tech gadget you can't live without.
Lots of tech gadgets I can't live without. iPhone.
I must admit that's true.
Yeah.
Same.
Phone. Okay.
Terrible.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Godfather.
Mm.
Home Alone.
No. I don't like it. Favorite movie.
Devil Wears
Devil's Wears Prada.
Meryl
Yeah.
Streep.
Yeah, I like her very,
Very
much.
cool.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, of course.
Dogs.
Okay. Favorite season of the year?
Summer.
Summer, definitely. Sun and sea and
Sun.
everything. Sun.
What's the last song you listened to?
It's actually a Mugam song.
Yeah.
So I have this thing with Farid Mamadov
Mm-hmm.
where he inspired me to listen to Mugam, and there's a little video clip, and I know this is more than 2 words, so my apologies. Video clip of the president of Azerbaijan listening to Mugam's story and Mugam's song and him getting all emotional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a little boy.
Yes.
Wonderful clip. It inspired me.
Sure.
And there's actually the last song I listened to, I have it on Spotify because I Shazammed it. That's why we need the iPhone.
Mhm.
It's Mugam in combination with hip hop.
Okay.
Wow.
It's a very cool combination, beautiful. But Mugam itself is very
Listen
inspiring
this.
for me.
Yeah, nice.
So I listen to songs. My favorite singer is Michael Jackson and Sting. But I recently been on a concert which I loved too. It's there. We had a composition of all old Azeri movies,
Mm-hmm.
accompanied by piano, jazz, so plus with tar and kamancha and everything like that. So Azeri band. So I really enjoyed this very much. It was from old Azeri movies, and it was perfect. So
Super. eh?
nice.
Yeah.
Historical figure you'd love to have dinner with?
Napoleon.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Nice. Last app you downloaded?
Actually, it's Apple TV, but it was on my phone, so it's not really Apple TV.
I think it's a Me application. It's where you track to-dos. So you take your pills, do that, and do this, and so kind of organizing.
Productivity.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Wow. Moving from one place to another immediately.
Fast.
Yeah.
To cook.
That's not a superpower.
I
You
think
do it
it's,
for a living to survive.
You can understand him. He has 6 kids. He needs
A
cooking.
superpower.
you know, I sometimes eat these dishes and I look at these chefs and I think, wow, if you could just,
Yeah, that's true.
because you said art, right? Well, cooking is art.
Definitely.
I think our jobs is actually
Yeah.
art, right?
Yes.
We sculpture people
Absolutely.
and their careers, and that's how I look at it.
Yes.
And some people grow up and we admire them, and I think you're a piece of art, right?
Yeah.
But cooking, particularly Azerbaijan food here now, like, I mean, the fact that I'm not like 300 kilos yet is a miracle.
But it takes a long time, but eating is very fast.
Yes,
Like dolma.
true.
You do it like for 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yes.
In
that's
a
true.
10 minutes you eat
But
it. It's gone.
I admire, like if I have something in front of me which is like a piece of art and it tastes like, you know, it brings me back to memories and emotions, I'd love to do that. So
That's
I do
super
think it's a
powerful.
superpower. Yeah.
Nice.
Great.
Last one. Finish the sentence. A perfect company is.
A perfect company is a company where we are in business to improve the lives and living standards of the people in Azerbaijan and the countries where we operate, to foster sustainable social and economical growth. And that's the company I work for.
PASHA
Yeah.
Holding. Nice. Perfect
Definitely.
company is.
Is a PASHA holding, but I would also add the one who cares about its people, who develops its people, and who impacts the life of the people, not only it's in their company but also in Azerbaijan.
All set.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
We
you,
did it.
Nigar. Thanks a lot.
Well done.
Thank you.